Good afternoon, and welcome to Ask Vancouver, our periodic live social media stream where I get to give you a few updates on some good things that are going on here at the City of Vancouver, as well as answer some questions that you've submitted over the last several weeks as we've been leading up to today's broadcast. So I'm going to dive right in. I have a few great things to share with you today. The first is really to give you an overview and an update on A Stronger Vancouver, which is an initiative that we have undertaken here at the city to help make Vancouver a stronger community over the next decade and increase the vibrancy of our neighborhoods, grow our economy, and improve the safety of the community. Just a little bit of background. Vancouver really does an amazing job, and I'm very proud of employees across the city and the leadership of the City Council in making sure that we deliver exceptional value services in a way that make Vancouver a really fantastic place. But there are some gaps out there that persist, and we have been engaged over the last year and a half or so in identifying and crafting a plan to close those gaps and improve the community across the entire city. So we brought together a group of community leaders, members of the business community, neighborhood leadership, nonprofit and philanthropic community, and members of our diverse community to help craft a strategy to provide long-term outcomes and long-term funding that will ultimately improve neighborhoods and business districts across the city over the next 10 years. That group, we refer to them as the Executive Sponsors Council of the Stronger Vancouver Initiative. And over that 18 months or so, they have developed a package of recommended projects, programs, and services, as well as options to fund those projects, programs, and services that would improve the community as a whole. We've been doing quite a bit of public outreach over the last several months on that. We have engaged in community surveys. We have done online outreach, open houses, spot community engagement, meeting people where they're at, focus groups to get information about those options that we're considering and the ways to fund them. Overall, as I mentioned, the project would provide really transformative projects across the city and programs that would be built and established in ways that would increase economic opportunity, that would enhance the vibrancy of our neighborhoods and business districts, would improve the community's safety and resilience, particularly in the face of something like a seismic event, and would make our services across the city really overall more equitable, both geographically, because we're a pretty large city, as well as with respect to an increasingly diverse citizenry. So the Executive Sponsors Council is working on its report and recommendation to the City Council, and we anticipate being able to present that to the City Council this coming April. And we anticipate the City Council over the couple of months following that will consider what options they have and ultimately will make a decision sometime in early summer. So it's really important that we get your feedback on this. Like I said, we've been engaged with the community through members of the Executive Sponsors Council and a number of other avenues, but hearing from you directly is really important. So you can provide us feedback by going to astrongervancouver.org. It's all one word, lowercase, which is a website that we've set up explicitly for this initiative. And you can learn more detail there, as well as provide feedback about projects, programs, and ways to fund through an online survey. So please just take a few minutes, go to the website and check that out. It's very exciting what we're working towards to better serve the community that we have here. So a couple other things that are going on. One, I wanted to provide a little bit of background on the city's policy for naming community and neighborhood parks. So a few months ago, it came to our attention that we had an undeveloped property that is owned by our Parks and Recreation programs that was named after a family who had previously owned but ultimately sold that to the city. It was Ed and Dolly Lynch. They're longtime pillars of the community and community leaders, and have been very generous in their philanthropy with the community. The city had named the park after their last name, Lynch, and that had raised some concern among members of our community, and particularly among communities of color. So that brought to our attention that our existing park naming policy actually is a bit out of date. It was last updated in 2011, and that was back when the city and the county had a coordinated Parks and Recreation program. So we're taking a look at that policy. We'll be revising it through a series of community conversations with the broader community and the Community Foundation here. And after we've revised the policy, we'll be able to go through a process to formally name all of our park assets in a way that reflects the heritage of our community and the legacy of those particular properties, as well as respects our increasingly diverse and changing community. So stay tuned for a little bit more on that. Another major project that we're working on here at the city is the Heights District Plan. This is an area just about in the geographic center of the city and what has historically been referred to as the Heights. The area is bounded by MacArthur on the west, generally Mill Plain on the north, and Andreessen on the east, and MacArthur as it curves around on the south as well. So this is an area that really came to our attention because of an opportunity for the city to acquire the former Tower Mall, or what has been referred to as Town Plaza more recently, which has been a building that has served as an office building, but historically was a shopping mall that was developed in the early 70s. In the intervening decades, it has been kind of on a slow decline in that area, and it's an area of the city that has been passed over by the market forces that have contributed to development investment that you see, say, in the downtown or over on the east side, 164th and 192nd. So the city saw that as an opportunity to acquire some property that has been in decline, as well as work with the surrounding neighborhoods and the community as a whole to identify a long-term vision and plan to reinvigorate that area and catalyze redevelopment. So we've been working on that for about the last 12 months and have developed a preferred concept for redevelopment that we're referring to right now as the Grand Loop, which would be a mixed-use new neighborhood centered on the property that is around the intersection of Divine Road and Mill Plain Boulevard. We would work to advance the redevelopment project that would include a range of higher density and lower density residential, a mix of retail and retail-like amenities like restaurants and coffee shops, as well as the potential for some employment in limited office buildings in there. And then, of course, significant open space organized in kind of a grand loop that circulates through the entire redevelopment area there. We're refining the proposal right now, getting additional community feedback on how we can improve it to reflect some community expectations, as well as create economic activity and economic investment in that area. And we'll be bringing that back to City Council in its final draft form later in 2019. So it's a pretty exciting project. You can get more information about it on the city's website. Just go to cityofvancouver.us and look for the Heights District Plan. There's plenty of information there on it. One kind of additional fun opportunity that we've been engaged in on that is the project was actually selected by the Mayor's Institute on City Design, which is a collaboration between the U.S. Conference of Mayors and the National Endowment for the Arts to look at how urban design and artistic investments can be incorporated into a redevelopment project like this. Mayor McInerney-Ogle will be presenting the project to a group of mayors and nationally recognized designers from across the country later this spring, and we'll get additional feedback on the project there in ways that we could refine and improve it so it becomes even more of an asset for Vancouver as a whole and the neighborhoods that surround that project. So. Downtown, which is an area that has been enjoying significant investment from businesses and new development in the form of restaurants and retail and multifamily. It has also put some pressure on downtown parking, and I wanted to give a quick update on that. We get a lot of questions about parking downtown, concerns about where patrons can come and park, from businesses that have employees downtown, and of course residents and visitors that come to downtown. I think first and foremost, I want to make clear that there is parking available downtown. We have a few thousand spots on the street, as well as hundreds of spots in off-street parking lots, both owned and operated by the city, as well as by private entities in the downtown. So there is parking downtown. I want to invite anyone who hasn't been downtown recently to come down and enjoy what is really emerging as one of the more vibrant parts of the city. But we recognize also that as downtown continues to grow, we need to continue to pay close attention to and have the right strategy in place to make sure that parking continues to be available and executed in a way that supports ongoing vibrancy downtown. So a couple of things that have changed just recently in the last year: we installed 90 new pay stations downtown and along the waterfront, and we converted from the coin-operated to the electronic pay stations. They give residents the ability to pay with credit card now, which is something that wasn't available anymore, so it's a convenience factor. We're also looking for ways to add additional parking spaces. Last year we added about 20 spaces through downtown just by restriping the existing streets in a way that adds some additional parking spaces. We continue to look for ways to optimize the existing on and off street parking system to add spaces there with relatively low cost. So one of the concerns that we've heard also is that the cost for employees who work downtown, wage earners who work downtown, is pretty expensive. So we've developed a parking program targeted specifically for employees who are downtown that make less than $20 an hour. There's information about that on the city's website, again, cityofvancouver.us. Through our parking program, you can get information about how to access these discounted monthly parking permits for wage earners who are working downtown. If you do visit downtown, we hope you do, it's important to note that parking is free after 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and it's also free on weekends. That's not the case in our friends to the south in Portland. And also it's free on recognized holidays in the city of Vancouver. So come down and enjoy everything that downtown has to offer. And a little forecast before the end of the year, we hope to be able to offer pay by app. So we'll have a smartphone-based app for our parking system. People will be able to pay for their metered street parking through the app and skip the credit card altogether. So looking forward to that deploying. And then the last project I want to give an update on before getting to some of the questions that you've submitted is the West Side Bike Mobility Project. So a little bit of background on this. In the last year or so, the City Council adopted a complete streets ordinance, or a complete streets policy. And that really means that we are looking to evolve our street system to be safer and more viable for all users of the system. So cars, transit, bike, pedestrian, all users of the system, which then not only makes them safer, but also improves mobility for all the different modes across the whole city. So as part of that, we're looking at key projects and corridors across the city of where we can incorporate that complete streets policy. One of those is the West Side Bike Mobility Project, and we've been working to identify and design bike routes, primarily north-south, that would attract wider ridership. They'd be safer, increase opportunities to bike in the community, hence making it also safer for all users of the streets. So in that effort, we have identified 3 streets that are potential corridors for better north-south bike connections in Vancouver. We're looking at Columbia, Daniels, and the Lincoln Kaufman avenues as potential bike corridors. We've developed some concepts about how to provide an integrated network of bike facilities along those routes that would also continue to accommodate vehicles, cars. We've been doing a lot of extensive outreach on these plans and concepts to the impacted neighborhood as well as broader users of the street system on the west side. There is detailed information about the alternatives that we're looking at, including maps and potential design alternatives on the city's website. And the planning team is still taking input via an online survey on the site. We're going to mature those concepts, those alternatives, and we're taking them to the City Council towards the end of February, getting feedback from the council, and then refining to a preferred alternative there. So we love to hear your input. Please go to the website, provide that feedback, and then stay tuned to the City Council for next steps on that project. So now for your questions. A couple that were submitted in advance, and I'll dive right into these. One was really a question about how residents, particularly older residents who are interested in security and being part of the community to help our police, but may not have the technological knowledge to do so, and is there something that, some program or the way the city can support their interest in improving the safety of the community and helping our police? And the answer is absolutely. It's a great question. We do have a volunteer program that supports our police department that might be of interest. It's called the Neighbors on Watch, or the NOW program. These are volunteers who go through some limited training, and they serve as kind of eyes and ears on the street for Vancouver police. They do foot patrols in our neighborhoods across the city, in our parks, in our retail areas. We have more than 150 volunteers in the program right now. They also can help with an array of other projects, like volunteering at outreach events and providing some limited administrative support to the department in the precincts. And we welcome all volunteers, regardless of your technical knowledge. So everyone has the ability to contribute, and we appreciate people's willingness to do so. So we accept applications for the NOW program year-round. We're currently recruiting for our next training academy for the NOW program, which will kick off on September 26th of this year. And for more information on that, you can call 360-487-7467, or of course you can go to our website. There's information about the Neighbors on Watch program there. So thanks for asking about how you can make Vancouver an even greater city. So another question that we had was about really safety of our streets, particularly for pedestrians. The question was, Vancouver has the highest rate of pedestrian collisions and serious injuries statewide, according to DOT, Washington State Department of Transportation. What is the city doing to make it safer for pedestrians and cyclists? So I mentioned the Complete Streets policy. That's a huge part of what we're driving towards, is to make our street system safer for all users. And we understand that there is work to be done to improve safety for pedestrians and cyclists across the city. So in recent years, we've made a number of investments to add pedestrian signals on arterials across the city. You may have seen them in the 4th Plain Corridor, Middle Plain Corridor, or on Fort Vancouver Way near Clark College. And pedestrian and cyclist safety continues to be a high priority. Some of the policies that I mentioned already and the investments that we've made. So the West Side Bike Mobility Project is one of those things. We look forward to bringing some solutions to the City Council towards the end of this month. We also just completed an extension of Reserve Street to MacArthur Boulevard along McLaughlin. And we will be looking at, we completed the planning there, and we'll be looking at implementing some Complete Streets policies in those areas as well. Also, we are pursuing a few grants that I think are important to be aware of. There's a pedestrian safety improvement grant that would fund a new pedestrian path along Divine Road between Mill Plain and 18th, which is a route that's used by kids walking to and from school. We are moving forward with the final design of completing First Street between 164th and 192nd Avenue, which currently is just a 2-lane road. We'll improve that to a full arterial with pedestrian, bike amenities there to assure some safe walking conditions there. We do have ongoing annual funding for the city's sidewalk program, so we're looking at how to improve the existing sidewalks and close gaps in that system across the city. And then we're also focusing on 4th Plain and looking for ways to improve pedestrian safety along that corridor and crossing that corridor as well. So a number of things on the front of improving pedestrian safety, and we're always looking for how we can leverage our local resources through grants and other state and national programs to help make Vancouver a safer place for our citizens. So another question that we got was a question about whether the city's rules and regulations require residents to move items like basketball hoops off the street. And whoever submitted this question had observed that there were a number of basketball hoops on their street in front of folks' houses. Concerned about that being a safety issue because of the potential for collisions, particularly at night. So the short answer is yes. We do have an ordinance that requires basketball hoops not to be placed in the public right-of-way permanently, whether it be in the street or blocking sidewalks. So we want to make sure that if people do have those, they bring them out, that they take them in after they're being done, after they're done playing. And if you have concerns that you observe in your neighborhood, you can call. It's live, so you got a little little music there in the background. You can call 360-487-8397 to inquire or report concerns about those kinds of obstructions in the right-of-way. So if you do use a basketball in the hoop in the right-of-way, please be sure you bring it in when you're done and don't leave it out there as a potential hazard. So another question we got was really about a specific area in the city. Somebody who lives, their house backs up to 176th Avenue across from the former HP property. This is down the HP property that's down on down on 34th in Southeast Vancouver. There's been a number of City of Vancouver panel trucks and trucks out in the vacant field there, which raised a question about, is there some development proposed? The short answer is the city was out there decommissioning a water line that we no longer use. So there wasn't any specific development proposal in the works. We're just being good stewards of our water system. There may be some additional work to install a concrete ADA ramp to one of the existing buildings out there, so you may see some additional equipment, but no specific development proposed at this time. So, got a question about the waterfront trail there that runs from Beaches Restaurant to the old Red Lion at the Quay. Wondering if that's going to stay in existence. Concerned that the condition is a little beat up. There's some panels that are lifted there, and want to confirm that yes, indeed, that is an essential part of our overall waterfront trail system, and it will continue to be in existence. We look to maintain that in the most cost-effective way that we can. So you may see some of the panels ground down so that they don't have lifted edges that could present a tripping hazard. If you see something out there that does need to be ground down, please feel free to report it either by calling our Public Works Department or submitting it through the My Vancouver app, which is a way to send photographs of things like that you see out in the field. As our waterfront continues to develop and grow, we will see evolutions of the waterfront trail. You can see there's a different kind of trail along the waterfront development, the waterfront park that opened last September. And as the old Red Lion at the Quay continues to redevelop, consistent with the Port's Terminal 1 master plan, that will also be a new trail extension in there. So there's also concern about high-speed bikes on the waterfront trail. The enforcement of that is difficult because we need to be able to catch people in the act, so to speak, of potentially violating any of our rules relative to bikes on trails. But we are looking to do more education. Part of the safer streets that we're focusing on is educating users of the streets to be able to make sure that they're adhering to and obeying all of the traffic laws and sidewalk laws. So we're focusing on a wide range of facets of how to make our street system safer for all users. So, and then the last question that we had was one about a lot in the downtown area. It is the area bordered by D and E streets between 16th and 17th. Recently there were a couple of older homes that were torn down there, clearing the property in a way that looks like it's being prepared for development. I believe, yes, it is. That block, if we understand the one that you're referring to, that block is owned by the Vancouver Housing Authority, and they have been partnering with a private developer to develop 96-unit apartment project on that property. It's in the early stages right now, but the intent is to add more multifamily and workforce housing to the downtown, which was part of a broader strategy to address a full range of affordable and market rate housing in Vancouver. So there are other vacant and underutilized properties throughout the downtown that are always being looked at by developers. There may be other questions that emerge on this issue, but that particular property is one Vancouver Housing Authority is working on developing. So those were some of the questions that were submitted this time around. There's always so many great things going on in Vancouver that sometimes it's hard to narrow it down to ones we can share, but appreciate people taking a few minutes if you tuned in, and if you watch this later, taking a few minutes to hear about some of the great things that are going on in Vancouver. Keep the questions coming. If they weren't addressed today, you can submit them at any time at #AskVanWa, and our communications team will do their best to get answers out there to the community. And until next time, let's all keep loving this place we call home.